Hey guys, Stephen Bogren here from Pro Physique. Today I want to talk about how to build muscles. Oh, I don't have any. So hey guys, hope you're all having a great week so far. Happy Tuesday everybody. Let's talk a little bit about the task at hand. And that's how to build muscle. And so I want to go over the three main mechanisms of muscle growth as covered in an article back in 2010 by Mr. Brad Schoenfeld. And I will link that in the description below so that you can look it up. Now, I don't think you have access to it on PubMed, so I don't know that it matters that much, but we're still going to go ahead and do that anyway. So you know that I'm not completely full of shit. So, the article actually goes over a whole lot of mechanisms of muscle growth, different hormones that are involved in the process, how muscle growth is different, all sorts of things. So it's a really, really great article if you're interested in those things. Again, if you can get access to it. So, but let's go over the three main mechanisms listed for muscle growth. Now, the first of these is going to be mechanical tension. Now, simply put, that means lifting weights. Yup. Pretty simple, right? So, lifting weights is actually going to be involved in all of these, I'll say, but there are some other ways that you can do it. So, mechanical tension, meaning we are forcing the mechanism, right, to do work, right? We're putting tension on the muscle with weight, with resistance. So that is going to be our first one. Second one goes real well with mechanical tension, and that's going to be muscle damage. When we are working out, when we're doing activity, when we're sore, it's typically because of micro tears in the tissue. So we are doing damage to the muscle. That forces it to do what? Well, it forces it to adapt, to rebuild, and to make a muscle stronger. Mechanical tension going to also have muscle damage, which is going to create big MSs. So the third main listed mechanism of muscle growth is going to be metabolic stress. Okay? Now, if you've seen my video on lactate, which is an old one, versus lactic acid, same difference, you'll understand this. So metabolic stress is the accumulation of metabolites within the muscle and our ability to really push ATP production with the muscle, right? So things like drop sets, supersets, all those kind of things, rest intervals. Those are all ways to help facilitate that we're putting more metabolic stress on the muscle cells. And that's going to be another big mechanism of muscle growth. So we know that there's different ways to, get muscle hypertrophy and muscle growth over time. We've seen Ronnie Coleman squatting 800 pounds. We've seen Jay Cutler doing a lot of negatives and drop sets and low rest times. We've seen many different types of programming. And we know that they can all facilitate increases in muscle hypertrophy, muscle size, muscle growth. Hey! God, Henry Winkler would be so proud of me. Still weird to me that he used to be cool, by the way, which makes me very scared about how my life is going to go. But separate note completely. So when we're talking about how we grow muscle, we know that we have these three main mechanisms. Now, how we incorporate those into our training are going to be very different, right? And Mr. Schoenfeld obviously goes, I guess Dr. Schoenfeld also goes into a good amount of detail about those kind of things. So we can utilize things like undulating periodization, we can use linear periodization, we can use drop sets, we can use blood flow restriction training or occlusion training. And there's a whole lot of different ways to facilitate that we are in fact growing bigger muscles. We just want to take into account some things when we're programming and thinking about our exercise. So first and foremost is, have we exercised before? How long have we been exercising? How much exercise do we do? That's where I always start. What's our exercise history, right? If we've never lifted weights before, we do not need to go hard. It's going to take very little to get a lot of progress. And so we want to do the least amount of work for the most amount of reward. So typically, if we haven't been doing a lot, we don't need to start doing a lot. We just need to go in, we need to learn how to lift, and we learn how to lift safely. Now, is there any reason you have to squat or deadlift or do compound movements? No, absolutely not, especially dependent on what your goals are. Now, do I still like those movements? Yes, I'll say it a million times. I really like those movements. But are they necessary for a bodybuilder or a physique athlete? Probably not. So we want to make sure that first and foremost we keep those things in mind. So your exercise history, what have you done? Because if you've been training for 10 years, it's a lot different than if you've only trained for 10 days, okay? We also want to keep in mind what is our long-term goal. What do we want to do with said exercise? Do we just want to be healthy? Do we want to like look good maybe, right? Do we have some sort of physique or body weight goal? Awesome. Nothing wrong with that. That's right, just like cornbread. That's a Chris Rock song reference for those of you who didn't grow up in the 90s. Do we want to go on stage? Do we want to be a competitive powerlifter or strongman or a CrossFit athlete? Like, what is the goal here? Because if we want to do CrossFit, we need to do CrossFit things. If we want to do strongman, we need to do strongman things. If we want to do powerlifting, we need to do powerlifting things. Right? Oh God! And if we want to be a physique athlete, we need to do things that are going to promote us being a great physique athlete, getting the most muscle hypertrophy we can, especially for like a bodybuilder. Maybe as a bikini athlete or as a figure athlete, we want to fit the mold of what they're looking for, and so maybe too much muscle can be a thing. And we want to make sure that, again, we know that and we have that long-term goal in mind. So we want to set our training to be very specific. And they actually call this something. It's called the Specificity Principle. So if we want to perform and we want to be in a sport, we want to train for that sport. Very, very simple. So simple. So we want to do like movements or things that are going to benefit us for that sport. And that's really where we want to be. We want to make sure that we pay attention to the overload principle, right? We want to be making sure that we are lifting enough of a percentage of our 1 rep max to facilitate that we are getting muscle damage, that we are increasing mechanical tension, that we are putting metabolic stress on the muscle. All of those important things. We want to make sure that we're utilizing all of these principles of resistance training to make sure that we are getting long-term results, because the longer you've trained, the more difficult it becomes. And we also want to make sure that we're staying safe, injury prevention, and that's another completely separate thing that I will talk about at length another time, because all my clients already know I talk about that at length a lot already. So I just want to give you guys a little introduction on how to grow some fucking muscle. And that's it, I'm out. Have a great Tuesday.